For those of you who are taking Thesis Seminar, I wanted to provide a brief video recap of Week 8 of Thesis Seminar. Today is March 24th, 2025, and I want to give you some things to be thinking about as we get into Week 9. So at this point in our process, all of you should be well into collecting your data. At this point, you should have some evidence in the form of documents or content, should have some evidence related to interviews, focus groups, stimulated recall, and at this point, you should have some classroom observations where you're recording the classes, you're taking field notes. Remember, when you're taking field notes, when you're observing a class, the idea is to try to observe as much behavior as possible. That is, you're focusing on what your participants are saying and what your participants are doing. Later, you can go back to your field notes with your recordings and then begin kind of an analysis to get your head around the information, to see how it relates to your research questions, and also determine what comes next. What else do you need in terms of the type of data, whether it's a document, interview, or a further observation, or just making sure that everything that you're collecting is answering your research questions. So today, between today and tomorrow, you'll be receiving some links in your personal notes page in Capacities, the weekly page that I keep up to date and that I'm sharing with you based on our discussions and our tutoring sessions. I'll include a link, actually two links, one to what's called the Notebook LM and a second link that is called Podcast. And the notebook looks something like this. And this is an AI-generated feedback that I think you'll find useful. On the left-hand column, you'll find your inputs, and this is going to be primarily, at this point, your literature review, tutoring sessions, a summary of all the notes taken for from your tutoring sessions, and the recordings that we have had so far this semester. The middle column you can ignore for the most part. You might see a general review or summary at the very top. Feel free to take a look at that. But there's not much else in the middle column. On the right-hand column are going to be your outputs. Now, on the top right-hand corner of your screen, you'll have a link to an audio. And this is generated by AI, and it's kind of interesting. If you listen to it, it has two people talking about your study. And so I think it's going to be useful to listen to the podcast and see how it relates to what you've been doing, what you've been thinking about, and what you're planning to do. I think you'll find it very accurate in terms of what we've discussed and what you've been working on, but there could be some inaccuracies. So I think it's a good exercise not only just to listen back to and listen to how others are talking about your study, but also look for any inaccuracies. I think we can listen back critically and see where it links and maybe where you would agree with some of the commentary and versus other areas where perhaps it could be off or maybe you don't agree with it. So take a listen to that. And then below here, you're going to find three different documents. You'll find a briefing doc, a timeline, and you'll also find a document that has information proposing different options that you can consider when it comes time to presenting your findings. Now, we're not ready yet to begin thinking about writing out the findings of our study because we need to have completed the data collection process. We need to go through a very deep analysis of that content, of that data. But I think it's also useful at this point, as you are collecting data, to begin thinking about the different ways that later you're going to present your ideas. So that document there is designed for that purpose. So I hope you find this useful. I am interested in how you feel about this kind of information. If you do think it's useful, or if you don't think it's useful, I think it's a good idea to discuss it, and you let me know how, if you have any questions about how to interpret any of this information. Now, I will say, going back to the sources on the left-hand column, the inputs, I have tried to get all of the tutoring sessions recorded, but there have been some cases where I have not been able to do so due to certain technical difficulties. So if in the event you see some that are missing, that would probably explain it. And so I think I've gotten most of the tutoring sessions recorded, but if in the event you are missing any, that would be the reason why. So as we complete week 8, continue to collect your data, making sure that you're triangulating the information to best answer your research questions. Week 8, we've been discussing a lot about the importance of going back to the literature review, looking for those key terms, and making sure that we're considering those key terms when we're observing our own classes. Remember that when you observe your classes, it's possible that not everything that you accounted for in the literature review you're going to be observing. Remember that we're looking for things that are happening, and we're also trying to note things that are not happening. But everything should link back or be related back to the literature review. So we don't want to ignore any key points that are being discussed in our literature review. So make sure that you're going back and familiarizing yourself with your literature review. If you haven't already, make sure you've already made those changes and removed the comments that are pending in your literature review so I can take another look at it. When you are ready for me to take another look at your literature review, you've made those changes and you've removed those comments, send me a message so I can go back and take another look. Okay, so I think we'll stop there for today. Make sure you continue to reach out to me if you run into any roadblocks, you're not sure about what comes next, something unexpected happened and you're not sure how to proceed. Those are things that we need to address as soon as possible and not necessarily wait until our next tutoring session. So please make sure you reach out to me. Otherwise, we'll see everybody in your next tutoring session.